Welcome to Swiftly Spoken, a fan-made Taylor Swift podcast in which we analyse her artistry, including her lyricism, music videos, and full album retrospectives. As always, we are your hosts, Lisa and Cameron, and this week we're deep diving into one of Taylor's most carefully crafted songs, Last Kiss. Last Kiss is the only song from Taylor's catalogue that has an annual celebration all because of a specific lyric, that July 9th. To celebrate Last Kiss Day, we're going to be deep diving into all of the details behind the song, the interesting choices Taylor made in the lyrics and productions of the track, the legacy it has in the fandom, and the prospect of a song such as Last Kiss being re-recorded.
Just before we get into analysing Last Kiss, we thought we'd quickly say that this episode, along with our Sparks Flight episode, are part of an upcoming series that we're going to do about all of the Speak Now songs, and we're going to deep dive into all of them, discussing all their stories and properly analysing them, which we're going to call Speak Now Stories. So keep an eye out for that. Once Taylor's version of Speak Now is announced, we're going to properly deep dive into all of those and properly start a series of episodes discussing all of everything Speak Now and all the great things that these songs discuss. So this is kind of a preface to all of those, and we're very excited for a hopeful soon announcement of Speak Now Taylor's version so that we can probably dive into those songs.
All of the Speak Now songs in general are so vivid, and that's why we want to do a series on them. They all have a lot of information behind them. They're also very, very personal, and Last Kiss is one of the most personal ones. It's the 13th song on Taylor's third studio album, Speak Now. Thought that it could have even been placed as a track 5 because of how personal and how vulnerable it actually is. Last Kiss, along with the rest of the standard version of Speak Now, was entirely self-written by Taylor, and it's the second longest song on the album, which stands at 6 minutes and 7 seconds, falling just behind Dear John, which lasts 6 minutes and 43 seconds.
I always find it interesting how people always talked about how All Too Well was really long, and that's kind of at the 5-minute mark, just over. Mm-hmm. Whereas like some of the songs on Speak Now are so much longer, with like Last Kiss and Dear John, but like they don't feel it. It's really weird, like when you listen to them, because you're so invested in the story and the stories are described so vividly and just so theatrically, they don't feel like Last Kiss doesn't feel like a 6-minute long song. You know, like the fact that like All Too Well is the 10-minute version is only like 4 minutes longer, which isn't really that, like, especially in terms of like Dear John, which is nearly at the 7-minute mark.
Yeah.
You know, if you just added Just Between Us Did the Love of Fair Maybe You Too for a minute and a half, it'd nearly be at the length of All Too Well, you know? Like, but these songs are so... that's why I've always loved songs that are self-written by Taylor, because there's so... You know there's been no outside input of like changing up the lyrics or cut it down, or, you know, this is how she sees it, the metaphors that she associates with it. And that's why I think Speak Now as an album is so vivid, and there's so much to describe, and why we desperately want to get into all of these songs individually and give them an episode and, you know, the credit that they deserve, because there's so much. Taylor really crafted these by herself. No one put any outside input or, you know, a different perspective in there, because she was the one creating these. And that's why I think Last Kiss and all of the songs on Speak Now are just so like personal and vulnerable, and I just love this song so much. I'm genuinely so excited to get into this.
The song Last Kiss is sort of like a letter to somebody. You say all of these desperate, hopeless feelings that you have after a breakup. Going through a breakup, you feel all of those different things. You feel anger, you feel confusion and frustration. Then there is absolute sadness. The sadness of losing this person, losing all the memories and the hopes you had for the future. There are times when you have this moment of truth where you just admit to yourself that you miss all these things. When I was in one of these moments, I wrote this song.
I really think that this is such a beautiful description of Last Kiss, that it is kind of the part of the relationship where it is just like total sadness, and Taylor kind of explores a lot of things, and interestingly, which we'll mention in a minute, like with Forever and Always, like the fact that song's kind of is the kind of anger and frustration almost. But then obviously when it's given a piano version, it's the sadness and stuff. And I think Last Kiss is that as well. It's just that brokenness, isn't it, of realizing this is over, like this is never gonna be how it was anymore, and I just miss that. And I think that that's why Last Kiss is so beautiful, because it is that brokenness.
It's absolutely devastating as a song, because especially the line, which we'll get into, I don't know how to be something you miss. I think that always has hit very hard, because like she said, it's not just a moment of sadness, it's a moment of realizing you have to admit to yourself you miss these things and there's no way to get them
Get
back.
back, yeah, which is like what is almost sadder, that it's like that is over and there's no way to turn back. And what's quite interesting, mentioning Forever and Always, is the secret message that is included in the Speak Now lyric booklet, and that secret message is Forever and Always, which obviously is a Fearless song, and which was placed on Fearless very late last minute, and this really gives the key connection to who this song is about, and then links certain Fearless songs and Speak Now songs together. So obviously, as everyone kind of knows, Forever and Always is written about Joe Jonas, and that is the same with Last Kiss. And I think that's what's and I always kind of, and we discussed it in our episode where we put other songs, Taylor Swift songs, on other Taylor Swift albums, is the kind of linear kind of links that happen between all of the albums, and the way that they really do kind of cross over with each other, you know, with Forever and Always kind of linking with Speak Now, and some debut songs linking with Fearless, and then onwards, and, you know, the songs kind of all linked together. And I think that that's what's quite nice, is that you get to see the different feelings that Taylor had for that individual relationship, you know, the kind of frustration and annoyance of Forever and Always, like you said, Forever and Always, like, why have you gone? And then the brokenness and the sadness of Last Kiss, and, you know, all these kind of multifaceted feelings that you get, and which is then Taylor then describes in Red, you know, the mosaic of different feelings. I think that that is explored in for this relationship in specific in multiple songs across Fearless and Speak Now, which is why I've just always loved Last Kiss. And I've always loved the secret messages. I really, really wish we still had them, because they give so, just the fact that like 3 words, Forever and Always, just
Connects
basically,
everything.
it just tells you everything about the song. Yeah, I really wish that we still got those. Like, I understand for Reputation she didn't, because of the, you know, there would just be repetition, there's no further explanation. So giving a secret message would be giving
more information.
More information, and that would defeat the whole concept of the album. But I really wish she brought it back for Lover, and even Folklore. The thing is with Folklore and Evermore, it's harder to do so, because they're not necessarily, they're about kind of imaginary situations or mixed in with her real life. You know, there's obviously the folklore element of, you know, that it's kind of stories passed about and the stories change and mingle with each other. But I really wish that we still had it in some, even just some songs, because I just miss it so much.
So
or
do I. It
maybe
was so exciting.
on the Taylor's version, Vaults, like that would be quite cool to get them on there even.
It would, because it was so exciting to receive the album and or just go through the lyrics and find all these little clues. And then you're like, oh, so this song now has a different meaning added onto it, because now it can be, like with this one, it can be connected to Forever and Always. And like you were saying, it makes this connection where we see the play out of all of these emotions and how she's gone through them all. So I also really, really enjoyed Secret Messages. And when Reputation came out and I saw that there wasn't any, like you said, I understand it, but even then I was kind of disappointed, because it was a tradition within the fandom that was so exciting. These 3 words give the whole song another aspect to it, and you can connect them songs. And I don't know, it is sad, but on the other hand, I understand. Reputation, like you said, makes sense. Folklore, Evermore as well. I guess she could have done it on Lover, but then if she was like skipping some, putting it on others.
Yeah, that's the thing. And also I feel like Lover is quite clear set really on what it's about. And also I suppose a slight negative, which I have seen people discuss about with the secret messages, is that sometimes they make you think about them in relation to Taylor rather than in relation to yourself. And Taylor's always said that these songs are not really hers anymore, they're her fans, you know, and her fans associate their feelings with these emotions. You know, it's not about necessarily Taylor's feelings not that they're not about that, but you know how she said with All Too Well, like it's about other people's experience with that song. It's not a paternity test, it's not about who it is and isn't about. But there is something that's just quite nice that they give context. I've always just quite liked to know the context and what songs link, and then you can kind of, I don't know, it adds to a kind of more like linear chronological story. So I have seen that opinion before, that actually some people prefer not having them, because then it's left to your own experience and imagination of what you want to interpret these songs as.
And you can draw conclusions by yourself.
But I also do like, I don't know, I just quite like it. I just like the fun element of actually deciphering it, and then also the context and the information that these simple little secret messages can give.
Which I guess is why is the figuring out the vaults and the 2 little like unscrambling the letters and the word search and that, they're just as exciting.
Yeah.
Because it's little ways to, she's always been good at that, little personal ways to make releases a bit more exciting, and I think this was one of the ways.
Definitely, and you're right. Actually, I suppose the vault is the deciphering of the vault is a new way of doing that. So yeah, she still definitely does it, but I don't know. There's just something about those secret, like I just vividly remember getting those CD booklets and then a sheet of paper out and like writing it all out. And someone on the internet had already found it way before I'd even deciphered it. Like before I tried to work out what I remember some of the words that I used to come up with. I'd be like, what? But I just really love it and really do miss it.
With that being said, we're going to get into the song and properly go through all of the lyrics and the production and all of the hidden meanings behind all of these tiny little details and choices that Taylor made that make this song as devastating emotionally as it is. So the instrumental intro to this song is exactly 27 seconds long, and this is no coincidence. Taylor made this the length of the intro of the song because it is also the length of the infamous breakup call between her and Joe Jonas, who, as we've mentioned, this song is about. That is such a tiny little detail, but it just shows how much she was thinking about every single little detail in this song.
Yeah, I really think that's the thing with Speak Now. Speak Now is on another level in terms of like how thought out and how personal elements of it are. And I always think about the Target commercial where she's like, I'm naming names. Like she really went for it. Like, she named names. She made stuff so specific and like, because the whole point of it is like, I'm saying stuff that I didn't get to say. So I want these people to know that I'm saying this, to them about this experience that happened, like I just love that. And there was something about late fearless, early Speak Now Taylor that she just like really didn't care. Like
she was ruthless. She was like, yes, this is 27 seconds long.
Yeah,
of her with the dolls.
With the dolls, and she's like, "Oh, this doll comes up with a phone, so it can break up with other dolls." Like she really just went all out, which I just.
And we all knew at that point in time in the fandom that the 27 seconds it was infamous because she had spoken about it and said, "Yeah, Ellen, he broke up with me."
Yeah.
In 27 seconds. And then the choice, seeing that it was literally exactly 27 seconds. And it makes you really feel the weight of how short that phone call was, because that intro passes in like, it doesn't feel like
27 seconds.
But it doesn't feel long at all.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh God, it all went down in those 27 seconds after all of this.
Yeah.
Crazy.
After this 6 minutes, you know what I mean? Like all these emotions that happen in the rest of the song. And that all those feelings were kind of broken because of that 27 seconds. It is. This is why I love Last Kiss so much. I love this song. Okay, so moving on to Last Kiss lyrics. The first kind of interesting lyric is from verse 1, and it's, I still remember the look on your face lit through the darkness at 1:58. So the 1:58 is quite a classic Taylor reference. She kind of mentions 2 a.m. a lot throughout her kind of earlier catalogue, and morning, very early morning seems to be a thing that follows throughout Taylor's kind of discography. But there's a bit of a debate here in terms of the date and the time, because if it is 1:58 on July 9th, then the image is not necessarily of Taylor on July 9th wouldn't necessarily make sense, because it would be the 10th, isn't there? There's a slight confusion about that, but I think that it's was it like thinking
just after midnight on July 9th?
Yeah.
Is July 9th and 1:58 the same day?
Yeah. There is a slight confusion about where it kind of came from. But Taylor actually confirmed during a Reputation Secret session that July 9th and 1:58 were on the same day.
Right. So our celebrations, what we do in the fandom, which is very strange, but the celebrations are correct. It is the same. July 9th and 1:58 are the same day. Continuing on with the lyrics, Taylor then goes on to mention I remember and I recall through the song. And this is something that she does in many of her greatest songs. She frames them all as being vivid memories. So we can see it in other songs like Out of the Woods, where she says, looking at it now, last December, All Too Well, August. It shows the importance of memory in her song and how memories, they can really stick with us and how much of an impression they can leave. And Taylor really does a brilliant job at evoking these memories really, really strongly. Like, you listen to these songs, and Speak Now is the perfect example, because every single song can evoke a very specific memory. And even if it's not a memory in yourself of your personal life, she paints it so vividly. So it really reminds us of something we haven't lived, but it's almost as if we were there.
Yeah, and I've always loved how Taylor kind of says, and she kind of gives importance to stuff, and don't forget these things, like even if it is
Yes,
sad. And I think that's always quite sweet that she's always like, I remember it, like you must, like with All Too Well, it's like, like I remember it all too well. You remember it as well. Like, don't pretend like this didn't happen
exactly.
just because,
Wildest dreams.
yeah, wildest dreams, yeah.
Say you'll remember me. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like there is this, she's always had this thing of like, no matter how the kind of experience goes, or positive or negative, it's about remembering it because you gain something from it. And I've always loved that she is very clear that memories are such an important thing, and remembering it and holding on to it is something that, yeah, it's kind of follows throughout Taylor's songs. And like you said, with All Too Well, Out of the Woods, August, Wildest Dreams, it kind of follows throughout. And yeah, it's a really kind of, it's in this song, it's really sad because it's like,
Yeah.
trying to remember something that isn't ever going to come about again. But sometimes it almost has quite a nice feeling of like, just remember it, like don't let it go, and even in things like New Year's Day, hold on to the memories. It is
Right.
a
It
thing that
really
is
is a
really,
theme that
that
she's
kind of
developed.
runs
Yeah.
throughout.
As we spoke about earlier, this song and Forever and Always are very, very much linked, and we can see that in the first lyrics. So, whereas in Last Kiss we have the words that you whispered for just us to know, you told me you loved me, so why did you go away? In Forever and Always, we basically have the equivalent of these lyrics, but just much more frustrated. So we have, you looked me in the eye and told me you loved me. Were you just kidding? So it's exactly the same message she's given us, but just
Yeah,
that changing tone and changing a couple of words really gives us like the sad version
yeah.
and the angry version.
Yeah, it's almost like Last Kiss's Forever and Always sad girl autumn version. It's like
Right.
it's like looking at it rather than the frustration and the annoyance of like, you said you love me. What are you doing? It's like, you said you love me. Like, why are you going away from me? Yeah, there's this total, just by changing up a couple of like words, it kind of gives this like brokenness in comparison to Forever and Always.
In the next part of the song, we have the infamous mention of that July 9th. So she says, I do recall now the smell of the rain, fresh on the pavement. I ran off the plane that July 9th, the beat of your heart. It jumps through your shirt. I can still feel your arms. So the point of this very specific reference is that it links back to a very specific day. It links to the day that Taylor was pictured arriving on July 9th of 2008 to a Jonas Brothers concert. And she was pictured exiting a plane as she traveled towards that concert. So it really pinpoints the moment in time. And of course, it kind of gives us confirmation about who this song is about, what this song is about. But it's so devastating that she remembered that day.
Mm. Yeah, it is, and it's almost like, again, referencing All Too Well again, with the like, I still remember the first fall of snow. It's like
Yeah,
she really does pinpoint
specific
these, yeah,
days.
like this specific. It's like it, and that's why it makes these songs so personal and vulnerable. Is because it's like there's like specific stuff that happened. It's like mentioned, and it's interesting with the whole July 9th thing, really, because obviously this is such a devastating song, and this like specific date and mention of this date is so sad. The whole thing of like, I can still feel your heart, and like I can still feel your arms, and the beat of your heart. But then as a fandom, we like celebrate this song. It's like, oh, today's July 9th day, Last Kiss Day. It's really
Yeah.
interesting how it's kind of,
It's so funny how it's developed. It is
yeah,
kind of parallel to All Too Well
it is.
in a way because we made All Too Well something different, and even Taylor has spoken about that and said, it's been translated, it's been transformed into something different now. Last Kiss, I still think it's a bit more underground in the
Yeah,
sense that but it is celebrated every single year. Like
yeah.
every year on July 9th, we have edits and like the lyrics are posted by everyone,
Mm.
screenshots of that 158. It really is a moment in the fandom, which is so crazy to think that it's from such a sad song, but at least it gets appreciated, I say. One way that many Swifties commemorate the song and the day is by starting the song at exactly 1:57:26 on July 9th. So the lyric that mentions 1:58 will be mentioned at the same time that the clock strikes 1:58.
This thing, it does seem
Yeah.
mad. Like I've never done this. Like I said, I listened to Last Kiss on July 9th, but I think
Yeah,
this
so
is
do I.
another. This is a little bit another level. Like
It's
I
kind of
just
like when
haven't
you line up on New Year's Eve, when you line up songs so it hits right at midnight.
night.
But this is
Yeah,
kind of like crazily on a different
yeah,
level.
it's on another level. I remember lots of people doing that for 2020, which is quite ironic now. With like
Oh
Long
God.
Live, it was the end of a decade, but a start of an age. Not a very good
Right.
age for 2 years,
No.
but still, like it's that kind of thing. But I don't know. There's something about Last Kiss where it's just like this song is so heartbreaking. Like you don't want to be celebrating like the 158. Like she was, like this is sad.
Yeah.
Interesting that people do it, and it's nice that Last Kiss is kind of has this huge legacy and has a day where
Definitely.
people really appreciate its lyrics and its songs, and it is a beautiful song. But I do feel like sometimes this is a little step too far, maybe.
Last Kiss is also such an effective song because it can be analysed basically as a poem, and within literary analysis, a lot of amazing literature comes down to the fact that the lyrics, or in this case, or the writing in general, is very vivid and it evokes things. So we've already spoken about this within Last Kiss and how it mentions these very, very evocative things such as a specific date. But one thing that really makes a song vivid is something that Taylor did in Last Kiss, which is mentioning senses. She mentions and incorporates the four senses into the song, and it really shows just how strong the memories of this relationship are. So, these four senses that she mentions are the smell of the rain, being the sense of smell, the feel of your arms, being the sense of touch, the look on your face, being the sense of vision, and also the words that you whisper being the sense of hearing. And we can even say that she does mention the fifth sense of taste, because we could kind of maybe relate taste with the sense of lips and
Kiss,
kissing,
yeah.
which is the main point of the song. So it's just these tiny details that makes this song's lyrics especially just so good. They're so
Mm.
memorable.
And
Like,
yeah,
it's incredible how much detail Taylor put into this. And honestly, from that kind of perspective, it does stand up against great poetry, in my personal opinion.
yeah, I think that songwriting is a form of kind of poetry and stuff. And the fact that some of these songs, Taylor songs, have originated as poems, especially with songs like "This Love." So no, I think it really it's just incredible. It shows her incredible songwriting ability and craft. I think that emphasis with all the senses, and it gives it more life. You can really envision the song. You can really either see yourself in that experience, or see someone else, or just imagine Taylor's experience in feeling this. It is just so vivid and so gorgeous the way that it's described. Okay, so going to verse 2, there's quite an interesting lyric crossover with a Joe Jonas song, which was released in 2011. So the lyric in Last Kiss is "The life of the party, you're showing off again," and in one of Joe Jonas's songs, he says, "I got to be the life of the party." So again, clearly there was a real understanding of him as a person, and these very vivid memories of certain experiences, and again is and it just and I've always quite liked that with and obviously Taylor and Joe Jonas now, and why we can talk quite openly about it, they're incredibly good friends, which I think is really nice. And and they kind of reference the fact that they have songs about each other. Joe Jonas's current wife even joked about Mr. Perfectly Fine.
Yeah.
So we can talk about this without it being a paternity test. This is not what we're intending. We're just more, it's interesting to analyze the lyrics and look at crossover and lyric parallels between other Taylor songs that are written about similar experiences, and then Joe Jonas songs that are written about similar experiences, to really add to the story and the vividness of this song. And it's very interesting that there's a real crossover between that song and this song.
Another interesting lyric in this verse is, "And I'd roll my eyes and then you pull me in. I'm not much for dancing, but for you I did," which has another very interesting parallel, this time with another Taylor song, "Holy Ground." So it really connects them because obviously we have Holy Ground. I don't want to dance unless I'm dancing with you. And then this one literally being her only dancing with that person as well. We then reach the bridge of the song, which is, in my opinion, one of the most iconic Taylor bridges. Something that you mentioned before is how long these songs are and how Taylor self-written songs tend to be a bit longer. They also almost always tend to have these amazing bridges. specifically starting from the Speak Now era, I think her songwriting in that Speak Now era was just so on point,
Yeah, it
all
really
done by
developed,
herself.
didn't it? Yeah,
Yeah,
there's something from that point onwards, from Speak Now onwards, that's when like the Taylor Swift bridge was really formed. Because
yeah,
even though, you know, there are elements of them in Fearless and on debut, not so much so in terms of, you know, them being really the point of the song and like the moment in the song and like these huge, like, you know, lyrical moments. And I think that, yeah, from Speak Now onwards, that was where they really, really developed. And I can't really think of many from Fearless or debut that are on the same level as, say, Last Kiss, Enchanted, or, you know, All
Dear
Too
John,
Well, Dear John, yeah, Out of the Woods, you know, all the songs that then continue, August, Champagne Problems, you know, that kind of go on. So there's kind of not, this is where she really like honed her craft of like the
for
bridge and
sure,
the
I
iconic
agree.
Taylor Swift bridge.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I agree with you. It's just, it's such a moment in the song. Like you can feel this build up in production, which again is done so well with this song, with the lyrics in mind, how it builds up and then it crashes, and then she's slowly breaking down in the bridge, basically.
Yeah, there's the shaky breath moment that
Yes.
is so, it really, that again, that is something, talking about senses and stuff, when you hear that you can really feel the emotion, as if the lyrics aren't already, you know, emotional enough. Like that is a real kind of personal moment, and it's something that we have previously kind of mentioned in one of our other episodes about Taylor's version, and whether this is something that will be replicated in Taylor's version, and whether she can still feel um, these emotions. And we'll mention this later on when we discuss the performances of Last Kiss, about Taylor performing this song and, you know, difficulties of possibly performing this song. But I'm really intrigued, and I really hope that we do get that, because I really think it's a real gorgeous moment. But I don't know if that's something that you can kind of fake it out, you know what I mean? It's almost like, can you, it's one of those things that was recorded when she was you know, that wouldn't have been something that she just kind of went, ah, you know. It would have been more in
Yeah.
the moment of like recording it in the studio, just the
I
brokenness of
definitely
trying to
feel
sing
it
this.
wasn't a purposeful addition, this one wasn't. I
No,
think it's
unlike
just because
things like Stay 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 or Hey
yeah,
Stephen, the giggle and stuff like that. Even the
yeah.
giggle in Hey Stephen was um also not on purpose. It was something that was done in the studio and then decided to be kept on.
Hmm.
But you know, it's not really something that you can necessarily recreate, can you?
Yeah, exactly. In this case, though, I think that she was just so emotional while recording this, and like we said, the bridge being so emotional and being like remembering it all, and then being like wishing you well, and you're literally about to go into the lyrics. Something reminds you, you wish you had stayed. But you think it's going to be very, very difficult to recreate because it is such a moment in the song. It's like a split
Mm.
second, but it really
But
gets you emotional.
really adds it. And in this bridge as well, just meant talking about it quickly. This has some of my favourite Taylor Swift lyrics of all time. So I'll
Yeah.
watch your life in pictures like I used to watch you sleep, and I feel you forget me like I used to feel you
Oh,
breathe.
it's just
And
so good.
then you can plan for a change in the weather and time, but I never planned on you changing your mind. I think these lyrics are just so, they just like give me goosebumps. Like even reading
How
them
she
out.
comes up with this stuff, like
Ah,
the rhyme scheme is amazing,
yeah,
the wording is amazing, and they're just like it's so simple, but at the same time so effective.
yeah,
How
like
much it breaks you down,
and yeah, you know, the feeling of feeling someone breathe, and then the feeling of you, like they're
knowing you're
forgetting
pulling
you.
away. Yeah.
Yeah, and just the vividness of both of those feelings and pairing them together is absolutely incredible.
Something we haven't got into yet is the actual chorus of this song. And it starts with, "But now I'll go sit on the floor wearing your clothes." And this is something that, again, has another parallel within Taylor's lyrics. The parallel can be made with "You Are in Love," which says, "You keep his shirt, he keeps his word. And for once, you let go of your fears and your ghosts." And I think it just shows two sides of the same coin. On one side, we have her sitting in someone else's clothes on the floor, completely devastated, thinking about I can't make them miss me. And on
Mm,
the other side, we have her keeping the shirt, and they're keeping their word. And you let
yeah.
go of that fear, that previous fear of being on the floor all alone and remembering
Yes.
these
Oh,
things.
that's such a gorgeous parallel. That is a really, yeah. Yeah, like you said, it's like two sides of the same coin, but one's so positive and one is so negative. One of being sat in someone's clothes, feeling so broken and apart from that person, and then being sat in someone's clothes and feeling the total opposite of being so, connected to that person. It's a really, really, really gorgeous parallel, and not something that was necessarily intended, but it's just a really
not at all.
interesting, parallel between the songs. And like we said in our previous one of our previous episodes about songs that cross over on Taylor albums, that's what's so interesting about Taylor's lyricism, is that certain metaphors and motifs are used throughout lots of different songs, but they look at stuff in a new way, even though they're the same kind of outlook, if you know what I mean. I don't know if I'm describing that very well, but and this is one of those things where it's like something like that, an experience like that of wearing someone that you're in relationships with clothing can have two totally different feelings, and it's just so interesting, and that's why I will always love Taylor's songwriting.
Another part of the chorus is, of course, the point of the song, the name of the song. Your name, forever the name on my lips. And this is just a random little detail, but a lot of people in the fandom have commented upon it, which is just how ironic and how funny it is that Joe, which obviously Joe Jonas was the inspiration of this song, and the name on forever the name on her lips would have been Joe, is funnily enough also the name of Joe, her current boyfriend Joe. So it's just funny that literally it is forever the name on her lips in the end.
Yeah, it's quite sweet. It is quite
it
sweet.
is sweet in a way. It kind of gives it a nice little spin.
Yeah, it kind of gives it the stay feel, maybe when she's like re-recording this, and we'll maybe think, oh, that's quite a nice crossover, and it has a new meaning rather than a sad meaning. It has a kind of thread of gold feeling of the
it is
invisible
like, oh, look
string.
how funny. Like, I never thought I'd be referring to literally the name on her lips would be that name. So
yeah, it's very
just a fun little coincidence. Yeah.
So the outro of or the final line of Last Kiss is one of my favorite things about the song. And so obviously, as Lisa just said, forever the name on my lips, and then the final line is just like our last. And Taylor doesn't say kiss, and the reason is because the last time that she says kiss, you don't realize that is going to be the last time she says it, just like the last time she kissed the person she's singing about, she didn't know was going to be the last either. And I just think that the way she says it, it's almost like you say it. She says, like, because I remember the first time I listened to this song, when she said just like our last, I remember thinking, oh, and I thought, oh, she didn't say kiss. And it's just and it's such a gorgeous way of like creating that feeling again of not knowing that would be the last time you ever had that feeling with someone, or that would kiss someone. And the way that she then replicates that in the music, and that's why this song is so specific, with the intro and the outro and the senses and all of the direct references to certain things in that relationship. It's just so gorgeous, and I just love, like I said, every time she says it, it generally gives me goosebumps, like just like her last, and you're like, it's so gorgeous.
It leaves you hanging, which is the point. It really does. It leaves you hanging because you kind of just want to complete it yourself by going,
just like kiss. Yeah,
but
it's like,
it
why
never
did
comes.
you say it? Yeah, and
it never
so
comes
gorgeous.
Because she never got it. You never knew. She never thought it would be our last kiss, and it kind of just cuts you off there, and it leaves you with that devastating feeling of loss. It really does.
It's so gorgeous, really gorgeous. Like I said, a lot of the Speak Now songs are like, there's something about the Speak Now songs. I don't know what it is.
It's because she wrote them alone.
I think she needs to. I know this is slightly controversial, but
no,
I think she needs to do it again. She needs to do it again. She needs to write solo again, because I want her solid. Because that's the thing with Speak. I think that's why they're so vivid. Is because there's no outside input.
All of these songs, in my opinion, that's why they can be analysed like this. Like, you can do text analysis on them. You can go really, really deep on them, because they're more like poems, and that is why Speak Now is not very commercial, and the GP don't love the album, because you can't just hang on to it. Then, it's not Shake It Off, is what I mean to say.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not. It's all so personal, and so All Too Well has always felt like a solo write. I know it's technically not.
Well, to be honest, I think Liz Rose, the good thing about her as a co-writer is how much like liberty she just gave to Taylor, and I think they were very much on the same wavelength.
Yeah, and she also said that all she really did was edited. I just want her to just do another album like Speak Now again. And one of the reasons why I'm so excited for Taylor's version of Speak Now is because hopefully we'll get more like this. So now we're going to quickly discuss some of the performances of A Last Kiss. So during the Speak Now World Tour, which ran from 2011 to 2012, the song was performed 92 times. And the performance of Last Kiss that is included on the Speak Now World Tour live DVD and CD, very interestingly, is from the night that Joe Jonas was actually in the audience. So we have seen a lot on the internet about this and weren't sure the truth behind this. So we did some research and probably delved in and found out that this is true by looking at the writing that was on Taylor's arms and the day that Joe Jonas did attend the Speak Now concert, which there's photographic and video evidence of him being at the gig and him being in the crowd when Taylor was singing Last Kiss. The performance that was featured on the DVD is the one that Joe Jonas was at.
Yeah, it all lines up, basically.
Which is
we went on a very spiral deep dive investigation, but it lines up. It was in San Jose. And yeah, it's very poignant to watch Joe Jonas watching Taylor singing this song, which is so blatantly about him. Like, even if we hadn't have known, if we'd never gotten the secret message, if we didn't have the pictures of her being at, the July 9th concert, he would have still known because, he was part of that.
He would have known those days and that, yeah.
Yeah, so to see that is, oh my gosh, so it's crazy to think he was in the
such
crowd.
An emotional thing to sing, knowing that person's in the crowd and knowing that you're fine with that person now and that, you're good friends with that person. And, it must be such a strange, but quite nice. It gives it a real full circle moment. And I think that's what's quite nice and why you can talk quite openly about the Joe Jonas songs is because they are really good friends now. And
this also has kind of sparked another theory within the fandom, which is that Holy Ground makes reference to exactly this moment. Because the secret message of Holy Ground is when you saw me in SD or something like that. It's like when you came to see the show in SD. But it's not completely correct because Joe Jonas went to see her show in San Jose, California, and San Diego, California would be SD, the reference in Holy Ground. So maybe Taylor wasn't remembering correctly because they're both in California. They both are called like San. I think she was referencing him, and I do honestly think
he may have been at that show as well.
Right.
And also, I think we've said this before where there's been slight spelling mistakes. There's a spelling mistake, isn't there? On Is It Everything Has Changed?
Yeah.
So it's like, these things happen. Maybe again, and the same with Reputation. There's a mistake in one of the lyrics, I think, on Dancing with Our Hands Tied in the lyric booklet. Or maybe it's Lover. There's one where there's a slight mistake, especially on the Lover, vinyl for Soon You'll Get Better. The title is wrong. So it's like, because Taylor isn't the one typing these things out. So, you never know. It might be a slight mistake. It might be on purpose. Then it might reference someone else. You never know, Holy Ground. But I think that it's quite nice to think that is part of this kind of linear of songs that,
Yeah, the speculation is made. We definitely know he was at that San Jose concert. Some people speculate that he also attended the San Diego one, although we don't have any evidence for that. But like you said, I really think it's nice to connect them. In my head, they will be connected because it gives it a really like full circle moment of the connection between the lyrics and how it in the end it ended up okay. Like you look back at it and you're like, it was good. It was Holy Ground.
And then it obviously when it links into Invisible String, it just, I don't know, there's just something really nice about these songs, and I will always think of Holy Ground as being part of that storyline because it just really adds and makes, and it just is a really positive kind of message. But anyways, back onto performances. The song was also performed once on the Red Tour, but has never actually been performed since. And during the Rep Tour, Taylor mentioned to a fan how some songs were just so personal that she finds them really difficult to sing. And Last Kiss, I guess, is probably one of those. And I wonder then, discussing about the Shaky Breath and Taylor's version, if to this day this song is still so hard to sing because of its vulnerability and sadness. And even when you watch the 10-minute version of All Too Well, the lyric video that's on YouTube, and you can see Taylor singing in the studio, you can see the emotion that she still emits singing this song, because you can step back into that person that's wrote these lyrics or originally sang it, and you can, and the lyrics are so, I remember even as a kid hearing All Too Well when I was like 12 and thinking, oh my God, like I'd never been in a relationship. I'd never experienced anything like that. But I just remember thinking, this is so sad, like, and just feeling so emotional about it. And I think that if you step into those shoes, whether you've experienced that or not, it is so heartbreaking, and Last Kiss is one of those. So I'm really, really looking forward to hearing Taylor's version of this song.
Yeah, I definitely think that Taylor's version of Speak Now in general is going to be difficult for her
Yeah,
to re-record because, like we've mentioned all throughout this episode, it is such a personal album. And going back and having to relive their moments, especially when some of the songs like Dear John and Last Kiss are so devastating and are about such, even for us as listeners, they're devastating. And
oh,
then we can kind of, like we said, yeah, sorry.
So I was just gonna say, like, Never Grow Up, like that
Oh my
song
gosh.
I really struggle to listen to. I have to
Even
skip
Long
it.
Live, I
Yeah,
can't deal with.
exactly. Like, imagine then having to sing that with,
With the
her
actual
new.
thing being lived. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so yeah, this is a really hard one to kind of go back on, and I think
Yeah.
that's why she doesn't really perform things like Never Grow Up. Obviously, Soon You'll Get Better and stuff like that, because they're just
Oh
so
gosh.
personal and so sad that it must be, you must just be so overcome with emotion.
I'm so excited for Speak Now, Taylor's version. I don't know when it's going to come. Like we've said, whenever we have any rumblings about it, we will be releasing all of these really, really cool episodes we have planned about like behind the scenes stories behind all of these songs, just like we have in this episode, because there is so much to say, so many details that I think have been lost throughout time and will be really interesting to discuss leading up to it. I don't know when it will come. I really hope we get some announcement soon, but yeah,
Me
Speak
too.
Now.
We've
Yeah.
kind of discussed privately that we think that unfortunately the kind of next musical thing is probably Carolina, and then maybe we'll move back into Taylor's version again. Probably so there's not a crossover, so maybe there's not a slight confusion about what's coming from where, to make it a bit more distinct of, like, Last Kid, This Love, sorry, the Doctorate, and then the All Too Well Film Festival stuff, and then I think Carolina, and then I think we'll then move back into Taylor's version again towards the end of the year, which is interesting. Maybe she's kind of designating that part of the year to doing stuff like that.
My final thoughts on all of this, on Last Kiss, apart from the fact that 10 years ago, this was my favorite song ever. And I'm so glad we've done this episode because it gives it justice, I think. But I will always say this, I think that Last Kiss walked so that All Too Well could run. And Last Kiss should be more appreciated simply because of that.
Yeah, I really do think that Last Kiss is really appreciated, but like on a kind of underground level. Like, in comparison to things like All Too Well that are like so, like I want everyone to appreciate that song. It's incredible. Like, it deserves everything. But I think that Last Kiss really deserves more appreciation. And it's
And Dear
almost
John.
just, yeah, and Dear John, it's almost like secretly appreciated. And I wonder maybe if Taylor's version will maybe make people. I think that what will be quite interesting with Speak Now is that I wonder if Taylor's version will make people realize, like, wow, like, because I feel like Speak Now is slightly underappreciated, or not necessarily underappreciated, but like, I don't know, it just isn't to the same level as some of the other albums, and I think that people don't realize how incredible these songs are.
There's two albums that tend to be kind of like not overlooked because obviously you're always going to find fans of Debut and of Speak Now, but I think both of them are kind of overlooked, maybe more on a general scale, like general fans, which is fine because everyone has their favorite music, and some people may prefer 1989 and that was their gateway into Taylor Swift songs, and that makes absolute sense. But honestly, I will always recommend Speak Now as a whole just for lyrical content. Lyrically, it's amazing.
I think lyrically, and this
Ahead
might
of
be
its
quite a
time.
bold statement, it's probably Taylor's best. Really, I know that might be a bit mad, but like putting it up against like Folklore and Evermore, but it's up there with those two. Like, it really is up there with like Folklore,
for its
Evermore.
time, it's definitely ahead of its time. And again, something that will be interesting to talk about is why she did that. Why she kind of worked on her own. So yeah, definitely stay tuned for all of that because I'm very excited to go into Speak Now whenever that will be. With that, we've come to the end of this episode. It's been so fun looking into Last Kiss, one of her most amazingly lyrical songs for sure. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like it over on YouTube and subscribe so you can keep up with us. Also, if you're listening on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, rate us if you did enjoy. And finally, keep up with us on Instagram by following us. We are at Swiftly Spoken Podcast.